Okay, Carol. So thanks for tuning in, tapping in, and turning on today. And Carol, my co-host, actually has a question because she's had this situation where she can compare and contrast certain things, and she's going to be sharing some of that along also with, questions, of course. So Carol, tell us what's going on.
Well, I've been on the patches since August, and I had a broken heart, we'll call it that, and so I had things, the patches in certain places that we talked about. What happened was I was out of the X39 and X49, and yesterday those patches hadn't arrived yet. So yesterday, a friend brought over an X39 and an X49 and put on right back here instead of on the heart area, right on the, actually below the glutathione, which was on there already. So he put it there, and it was after, and I was kind of dragging because I had been working out in the garden and all of that, and my body was obviously missing a couple of patches of light. So what I noticed, and I'm very familiar with recognizing differences in the body and what's happening. And so I just went about my day, and was maybe within the hour, I felt strengthening. I could actually feel my whole body starting to strengthen from here, working all the way down. And then I thought, well, this is kind of cool. I like this. And it isn't easy to describe because the words need to be refined into simplicity. Strengthening is what I felt. So that can mean anything to anybody, but I could feel it in my nervous system in all directions. And then I was just walking around, and I went through the day as if nothing was happening, except stronger than ever.
Feel better. Yeah. So I had something similar happen to my mentor, Dr. Maury Hansen, who moved from Dana Point. He moved to Virginia. And when he first started on the patches, oh my goodness, his wife told me, Bonnie, she said, we moved to Virginia because we needed really for our daughter to take, kind of care of us because Maury was in the decline. And Maury will be 90 this year in October. Oh. And so this was last year when we started him. And then she said, oh my gosh, what a difference the first week of him on the patches. He turned a corner. He had more strength. He slept better. He didn't wake up as many times. He still woke up a few times at night, but he would get right back to sleep. He wouldn't toss and turn. And he just felt better. And then I want to say like 2-3 months after he started on the patches. And of course, he's feeling great, right? And things are really it's a significant improvement. And then in the 3rd month, I can't remember, we were ordering, it was close to the holidays. So we were ordering some extra things, because he was buying, some things for his wife, like the creams and things like that. And so the shipment time kind of got changed because he pushed back and moved up stuff and all that. And then all of a sudden I get a panic call from him, and he's like, he goes, hey, he calls me Sugar. He goes, hey, Sugar. He goes, where are my patches? He goes, it's been like 5 days and I've been sucking wind for 5 days. And it's like, it's a big difference with and without those patches. Those patches are a lifesaver. And I'm like, you've gone 5 days without the patches? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, but you should have gotten your patches like over a week ago. And he's like, I know. Yeah. So I went in and I looked, and I'm like, okay, well, we ended up having to adjust that. And so I immediately adjusted his shipment so that he would get it, in the next few days. It takes 2 to 5 days, depending on your zip code. So he ended up 10 days without the patches. And he said, he goes, knowing how good he felt before, he said those were the 10 longest days of his life. And he said, he goes, every day he would wake up, and it was like the plug had been pulled, and he really needed the patches. And I said, oh my gosh, I wish I could do something to get them faster to you, because he's not in a shipping code, in a zip code where he could get it in 2 days. It would be 5 days. So he ended up 10 days without the patches. And then the day that he got the patches, immediately he put them on, and he's like, oh, like he goes immediately, like he goes within 30 minutes. He's like, oh, finally relief.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's his history. And then I did a video on, I did a Facebook Live about that, because his wife was just so like Bonnie's like, oh my gosh, these patches have. So like for last Christmas, after Christmas, she was saying, she goes, I didn't think he was going to make it till Christmas.
Oh,
And
my.
because of the patches, and this was not this Christmas, this was the Christmas before. So
Uh-huh.
So we're in 2024, 23. I started him in 2022 on the patches. And here she didn't think that he would make it to December of 2022. And he did make it to December 22. He made it to December of 2023. And we have yet to experience December of 2024. This October, he'll be 90 years old. So I'm like, oh my gosh, just knowing. And you know the feeling, because you have helped so many other people learn about this life-saving technology, and they feel better. And when people
Yeah.
are in pain, when people, in his case, he had heart issues, but he's a cancer survivor. And he also had horrific pain from trigeminal neuralgia. And I don't know if you know anything
Oh,
about
my.
trigeminal neuralgia. It's a horrific, horrific condition. It's a neural condition where it affects the nerves around the face. It affects
Oh,
the
my.
eyes, it affects the nose, it affects the teeth, but they call it the suicide syndrome, because so many people, the pain is so horrible, they would rather die than continue
Wow.
with this horrific pain. And in centralized medicine, there's nothing to cure it. There's no surgery to repair it. There's nothing that they really can do. All they try to do is give pain management, and it's something that's chronic. It usually doesn't get better with time. And so he would suffer these horrible bouts of trigeminal neuralgia. He has not had any trigeminal neuralgia issues at all since he started on the patches. None. And
Wow.
so that's pretty incredible. And so just to know that I was able to, to provide one person, each person is so sacred, so special, so divine. So for me to be able to know that that person experienced relief because I was willing to open my mouth, put my ego aside, and say, hey, I don't know if you know anything about this life-saving technology, but this works on all human beings, all mammals. No one is so special that these don't work on you. People who tell themselves, oh, these don't work, I go, that's not true. That's a lie, because your cells are working right now. And you put
Right.
the patch on, and that patch, it's not putting any medicine in you. It's a mirror to reflect back your own light, which turns back on 30%
Right.
of your previously dormant cells. Now you have this really rapid repair because you have 33% more light running through your body. So it works on all mammals. And we've come to find out it works on fish as well. It works on birds. Birds are not, they're avian. They're not part of the mammalian species. And it works on fish, and it works, come to find out, it works on plants. I told you my story about my plant, which was a little IKEA
Yeah.
plant for $2.99. And
Uh-huh.
in 5 days, it shot up. To this day, it's still like this tall. It's now passing above the mirror, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to eventually plant it into a bigger base. But it's not shooting up anymore, because after 5 days, I took that X39 off of it. I'm like, I was kind of surprised, because I'm like, there's no warmth, you know, but there's still a temperature that comes from the plant. There's vibrational frequencies.
Yeah.
And I've seen on different YouTubes and on TikToks and Instagram where they actually have a little clip probe where it has an electronic probe on there, and it's hooked up to a machine, and they can measure the electricity, the light that's inside the plant. And they can even interpret the vibrational frequency music that different types of plants and flowers and trees can give. And just by putting that on there. So we know that there's an energy emission taking place. So, it works it works on living beings. So it's quite extraordinary. There's no paycheck.
It does. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it works.
you
It
have your
works.
friends, yeah. So
And I, I'm 84, so most everybody that I've gotten on the patches is younger than I am. And one person said, "Well, I don't know, nothing's happening." And she, this was at whatever. She said, "Well, no, I don't think anything's happening." And I said, "Well, how do you know? Explain to me what isn't happening." And she couldn't do it either way. I said, um, so, and then I went into the problem she had, what had been happening, and had her describe what had been happening and caused her to be uncomfortable. And lo and behold, as she talked about it, she realized that had changed. It was very subtle, but those patches were working.
and
And, and
just
when I asked that question, how do you know?
yeah, so,
Then
you know, we have people who, because a lot, so some people only have one thing. That's more of the exception than the norm.
yeah,
Most people have, when they have symptoms, they usually they're accompanied by a group of symptoms, and usually the things that bother you the most.
yeah,
So for example, like when I was recovering from my injuries, the tinnitus bothered me because it kept me from sleeping. But honestly, I would keep the tinnitus, even though it kept me from sleeping, any day and Sunday, just because the pain was so horrific that I had in my neck and in my back.
yeah, yeah.
It really felt like a screwdriver, and like an ice pick in the shape of a screwdriver was being driven into my neck and into
Oh,
my back. And it also felt like a meat grinder was going through there. It was just, it was,
oh,
really unbearable
horrible.
pain. And it was 24/7. It doesn't let up. And
Yeah,
so, to sit up in bed it took a lot to just, now I pop up out of bed, no problem. But back before, it was like, no pun intended, back, back in the day, 2017, 2018, 2019. Oh my gosh, just to, once you would wake up, then to start to move to get out of bed, it would start with the pain in the neck and immediately travel, then my back would also hurt. And it would take a long time just to sit up, let alone to make it over to
yeah,
the bathroom and stuff, just because the pain was so bothersome. So some of the other things like tinnitus, like that really wasn't like at the top of my list of things to get rid of. My pain
right.
was at the top of my list. I wanted to restore my mobility so I could, jump on a bike and run again. I wanted to not be in constant 24-hour, 24/7 pain. And there are a few things, like I remember there are things that are subtle and not so subtle. So when they happen, they may not be so subtle. But when they stop happening, like with
Right.
Williams, he didn't even realize that his handshaking had gone away because he had so many other things that were graver that were plaguing him. Those things went away. And it wasn't until Lisa said, "Oh my gosh, my sister's hands in the first 30 days, they stopped shaking." And now for her, it
Uh-huh.
was like the number one thing. She goes, "I got to get rid, that's like Parkinson's, right?" And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot. I used to have shaking hands. My hands don't shake anymore either." So one of my things that I had that disappeared was that nystagmus. I have no idea how many months it took for that to go away. At some point, it disappeared. I don't know if it was at 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, a year, 14 months. I have no idea, because
Yeah,
it wasn't until at the 14-month mark, and I'm writing down my the laundry list of all the different things that I realized as I was putting that document together, because someone was interviewing me, I realized, wait a minute, I don't have nystagmus anymore. I go, I don't remember. I go, it was July, and I'm going, I'm not sure if I don't think I've had it at all this entire year. So that's the last 7 months. I don't know when it stopped. I just now realize that I no longer have it.
right.
So, and that was a disturbing thing, because let's say if I were to focus on you right now, I focus on the little green light on the camera, which makes it look like I'm looking into your eyes as we're recording this.
Right.
So when I would
Yeah,
focus on something, no apparent reason, no rhyme or reason, no like precursor warning or anything. All of a sudden I would look and then my eyes would rattle. It would just go, and then while my eyes are, it's weird, the feeling of that vibration of that rattling of your eye, where your eyes literally going back and forth this way for like maybe half a second or a second, maybe 2 seconds. And then everything shakes and then it stops. It's a very unusual feeling, but it would happen several times a day. So from several times a day to not at all. I don't know when that stopped.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And that's kind of a serious neurological presentation or symptom. It's showing you, yeah, you have a lot of nerves there connected not only to your eye, but you're, in the back of, you have an optic nerve in the back of your eye. And that's the only nerve that is part of the brain that's outside of the brain because it's connected to the back of your eye. So that's showing you a level of brain damage that's not exactly good, right? And so
Yeah.
nice to gammas. It's like, whew. So
Wow.
sometimes we have things that disappear and we aren't aware. And so that's why I try to tell people when you first start, write down everything that's bothering you, everything from maybe a little rash to dryness. Maybe you have extreme dryness where because my skin was super dry. My skin's not super dry anymore, but it used to be super dry and it would get chapped. And then I would get lesions on my chest and on my lips. And it was just,
Oh,
my whole chemistry was out of whack.
uh-huh.
Those things start to disappear. Like I couldn't feel my hair growing, but boy, was it growing. Like I still can't feel like this new hair growth. Now it's starting to settle down a little bit.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah,
Yeah.
mine's changing.
I can
Mine's
tell yours
changing
is a little
too.
darker too and a little fuller.
Yeah, my family said your hair is getting golden red again.
Yeah.
It's not gray.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you can't
So
feel when your hair's growing,
no.
but something's happening.
Yeah, something is happening.
Something is definitely
Yeah,
happening. So
well, it makes sense. The beautiful thing is it's my own body that's waking up from my own stem cells, just pushed along with that little patch that's there. And so that's what really excites me because I've done all kinds of alternative things over the years, as many of us have. But this is me doing it, with a little help from a patch.
yeah, they're like, tiny little solar panels or tiny little mirrors. You just put
Yeah,
them on, boom, and then
yeah,
that's like the on switch for 12 hours. You have
yep,
a construction crew. It's
yeah,
replacing whatever damaged tissue with new tissue. It's doing whatever needs to be repaired in any way, shape, or form. If you've got toxins that shouldn't be in there, it's like, go. Okay, she's decided to, go out with her friends tonight and she had a Bailey's Irish cream. Oh, we got more work. She's not going to have a hangover because we're going to clear these out in the next few hours and she'll pee and poop
uh-huh.
it out and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. So
I love it. I love it.
it is
And
really
they're fun. Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, they are a lot of fun. Yeah, and in fact, when I wear it on my temple, people will
Yeah,
ask me, it's like, oh, what's that there? It's like, oh, did you get hurt? Or, I've had people ask, is that a nicotine patch, like for stopping smoking? I'm like, oh no, I don't smoke. I don't smoke anything in any way, shape, or form. No, this is to increase memory, focus, and brain processing speed. They're like, it does what? And I'm
I know.
yeah, it increases memory, focus, and brain
Yeah.
processing speed, and it's kind of makes you happy. They're like, wow. He goes, where do you get that? I'd like some of that. And I'm like, yeah, me too. That's why I wear it there because yeah, it does the trick. So yeah, I've always been a happy person, but I'm definitely even happier now because the Eon patch, which it balances your left and your right brain. And because it lowers your cortisol and C-reactive proteins, they've nicknamed it the happy patch because people who have PTSD, anxiety, negative looping thoughts, in as little as 20 minutes, 20 minutes
Yeah,
after putting the patch
yeah.
on, their anxiety starts to go away, it gets resolved and dissolved. They feel calmer, they feel more centered and balanced. 20 minutes. And the research studies support that too. But I see that a lot with people that I patch. They're like, oh, wow, it's only been, 15, 20 minutes. And I I feel better. I just feel more centered, and my jitters are kind of gone. And some people's jitters is because they're drinking too much coffee. I'm
Exactly.
like,
Exactly.
it's like, yeah, 1 cup of coffee a day, that's cool. Even 2. But I've had people who tell me they drink 6 to 8 cups of coffee a day.
Oh,
Going,
my husband did.
I'm like, six to
Yeah.
eight cups of coffee a day. What are you trying to do? Provoke a heart attack? Like, you know how much dehydration? For every cup of coffee you drink, you have to drink 2 of water just to stay even. Not to mention that nicotine, people, the nicotine from the caffeine, excuse me, the caffeine from the coffee, it gives people energy, which is why a lot
Right.
of people drink it 6 to 8 times a week. Other times it's not even the caffeine. Sometimes it's just the taste. It's no different than having, either some people are addicted to chewing gum or to
Yeah.
a certain flavor, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some of it is just the habit,
Yeah.
to get up, once every hour and a half at work. And they get out of their chair, walk to the coffee pot, say hi to one of their coworkers, and then come back. It's like something comforting, and they're like, coffee's a little heavier than tea. And so they're like, yeah, it's just kind of something to do. It gets me out of my chair and I get to walk over and say, socialize for, every, hour and a half or so that I'm not sitting planted for the majority of the 8, 9, 10 hours a day that they're working.
Yeah.
I kind of get that, but just realize it's like 6 to 8 cups of coffee a day. You're complaining to me that you have anxiety attacks. I go, it's probably the coffee. And don't do decaf because decaf has formaldehyde. Oh, yes. A lot of you don't know that decaffeinated coffee, you're trading the caffeine for formaldehyde, because the process of
Wow.
removing caffeine from the coffee bean, they use formaldehyde to pull that out of the coffee bean.
Oh
So
my
the
gosh.
formaldehyde stays in the bean, stays in the coffee, and gets
Yeah.
caffeine out. And now
Oh,
you have that preservative that we use in biolabs to store pigs' hearts, frogs, salamanders, and
yeah.
all sorts of
Yeah.
things.
Oh
Yes,
my God.
formaldehyde was not supposed to be in the body, not a live body. Dead body, you can preserve, organs in formaldehyde. They'll last indefinitely,
Yeah.
but you're not supposed to be drinking, inhaling, smelling, or absorbing it. And you're getting it with your coffee. I remember when I first learned that like years ago. It was like, I don't know, 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. And I remember thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone thinks that they're doing better by having decaffeinated coffee. I need to tell them. No.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My husband drank a lot of coffee, but he worked outside in the woods, so he would take his coffee, and he didn't, it was coffee.
Well, he
None of this
probably
decaf
drank,
stuff.
yeah, and he probably drank a lot of water too, because since he was a forester and
Yeah.
he's outside and he's in the
Yeah.
sun quite a bit,
Yeah.
those foresters, yeah, they do drink a lot of coffee, but they also drink a lot of water because they're constantly
And he has a
watering.
big thing of water.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
they do. People that are outdoors, people
But
always,
it was still,
yeah. My
yeah.
true story, my mom used to drink 6 to 8 cups of coffee a day, and she's only 100 pounds. And
Wow. Oh
she
my gosh.
started getting anxiety attacks. And so when I started, she's like, oh, I had to have the, because I really didn't want to, but I told the doctor that I'm nervous all the time and I keep on dropping things. And um, I just get so dyskiltered and I feel like I'm having an anxiety attack. And so he prescribed, something for anti-anxiety. And I'm like, okay, so I started kind of doing a little assessment on her, and that's where I discovered she would drink a pot of coffee, which was 6, 7 cups of coffee a day.
Yep.
And she takes her coffee with a lot of cream and sugar, as do I. I like mine really blonde and really sweet. But I don't drink 6 or 8 cups of coffee a day. So
Oh
she was
no.
drinking, when she told me that she was drinking 6 to 8 cups of coffee a day, I'm like, Mom, like, what are you doing?
No
You're
wonder.
I go, no wonder you're having anxiety attacks. I go, oh my gosh. Now, I knew that coffee increased nervousness, because I didn't drink coffee until my freshman year when I was my freshman year at USC, I'll never forget, I started drinking coffee because I was working for a physicist in a division of NASA that was doing a joint venture with USC. Makes me sound so smart. Working with
Yeah, well, you are.
anyhow, I almost forgot about that. That's been so long ago. So anyhow, so I worked for Dr. Joe Logan, and I'll never forget, so of course they have the coffee pot, and we're writing research papers all the time, and submitting all these different, research papers and so forth. And so the thing to do was like to get up and go get a cup of coffee. And there were like usually 4 or 5 people at the coffee pot. And I'm like, what the heck, why not? Let me get some coffee and I'll add some creamer and some sugar. And then I remember I went off to a chemistry lab, and I was in chem lab the first week of school. And, we have test tubes and we have all these chemicals that we're mixing and stuff. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I started to go mix the chemicals, and my lab partner that was to my right, I literally was going like
Oh,
this.
my goodness.
I'm only 18,
Oh,
right?
my.
So I'm like, and I'm kind of like looking at my own hand. I'm like, why am I shaking? I'm like, this is kind of weird. I'm like, why would I shake? That doesn't make any sense. And then my lab partner is like, he goes, what's wrong with you? I go, I don't know. He goes, why is your hand shaking? I go, he goes, did you just do drugs before class? I go, no. I go, I don't even take Tylenol. I don't do any drugs. I don't smoke. I've never even touched marijuana. And I go, I don't know why my hand's shaking. And so I'm like, it's hard to pour liquid smoothly into a little vial
Yeah.
when you're doing this. And I'm like, I go, why am I feeling? I don't have any reason to be nervous. Why am I like have this nervous energy in me? So it took me like 5 days to figure it out, literally. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The only thing different that I was doing was drinking coffee at work. And then that Friday, I was back in lab again because the lab was 3 times a week. So I'm in chem lab again. And this time I'm thinking, because I had come straight from work, because lab was from 1:30 to 4 o'clock. And I remember thinking, I wonder if it's the coffee that's making me jittery. Because it's not like you drank the coffee and you felt zzz. It was just when I went to something that required, fine motor skills, that I'm noticing, why am I shaking, right? And so the next week I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll do like a green tea, a chamomile tea. I'll do something else, but I'm going to skip the coffee this week, see what happens. And I'm going to have to call him back, one of my East Coasters. So what happened was that next week I didn't have any coffee. No problem. I'm going, oh my gosh, I think it's the coffee that's giving me the jitters. I'm like, I don't like that. So I'm like, okay, so I just stopped drinking coffee. And then I didn't have coffee again until I went on my honeymoon. I was in my 20s, went on my honeymoon, and we went to Europe for 3 weeks. So now I'm drinking coffee 3 times a day. But since I'm not doing fine motor skills, I'm running around doing sightseeing all the time. Kind of didn't matter because I'm talking, the coffee at work was American coffee, which is mild.
Yeah.
In Europe, we have cappuccinos and we have lattes, and I don't really do espressos because that's even stronger. But whenever I go to Europe, I always have cappuccinos, and I have lots of lattes, that's for sure. And then that's kind of when I started drinking coffee again, but still not every day. So that's when I discovered, because then I thought, well, maybe I'll do the decaf coffee, and that's when I learned about the whole formaldehyde.
Yeah.
You're trading formaldehyde, you're giving up caffeine, and you're bringing in formaldehyde.
Yeah.
That's really bad for your body. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then and this is old school research because we didn't have the internet in those days. I'm dating myself.
No.
I didn't have a little computer that I could, we use computers and so forth, but we didn't have the internet. It was in 84 that they didn't call it the internet, but during the Olympics in 1984,
Right.
we had the Olympics, and I had already been working for a couple of years as a medic, because when I went to high school, I also went to medic school to be a paramedic. So I was able to work my senior year in the emergency room for a private ambulance company. etc. So the 84 Olympics came out, and then I was able to work the Olympics. And so, yeah, kind of interesting how everything kind of unfolds.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful, exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. So anyhow, so let's see. We are here at 45 minutes past the hour. So I think this is enough information for people to learn and provoke you guys. Oh, the thing I was going to say about the Olympics is, in the Olympics, I think they must have been beta testing what was the internet, because
Oh
from
yeah,
all the different venues, we had 8 venues in LA. So we had, USC campus, we had UCLA, we had Rancho Dominguez Hills University. They did the cycling there. The sports arena, they did the weightlifting and boxing there. At USC, they did the they did swimming and diving, etc. So anyhow, the thing was that we had on these little computers that we had at every single venue, we could do emails to each other from all the different venues, so that we could keep in communication and coordination with everything that was going on for all of the Olympics. And after I left, after we were done, because that was 2 weeks of pre-Olympics and then the actual Olympics themselves. So then, you go back to school, go back to work and all that kind of stuff. And then little by little, you see the internet starting to come on, but they didn't call it the internet at the time. It was, I don't know what you called it. It was just a kind of a very rudimentary form of communication, because it was just a kind of a blue screen with light, the words were all in like white or light, light colors and so forth. It's very basic, right? But we were able to communicate from one place to the other and have that it was an electronic mail system. So nowadays, we can research everything on our computers, on our cell phones. But in that time, I had to research everything. I had to go to the Doheny Library. And
yes, you had to go to a library, for heaven's sakes, and research.
Go to a library and actually do the research there and spend
turn the pages. Yeah,
pulling all these books, taking all these books to one of the desks in the side cubicles, and I'm like, okay, and then put them, all these little papers. Okay, so I want to bookmark this. I need to make copies of these pages, and I was very dedicated to whatever it is that you're looking for, and then they had these microfiche boxes where they were kind of very rudimentary computers, where they would put microfiche in the side of that box, and then you could look up information which would tell you where to find it in the library. Gosh, it seems like, Fred Flintstone times.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't it? Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Now, click of a button, you can just put on YouTube or on Google.
Yep.
Med, NIH, whatever.
Yep. Got them all.
Process of decaffeinating coffee, or is there formaldehyde in coffee, and you'll get all your
right there.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So, all right, my friends and gems, if you have other interesting comments, questions, or concerns, if you have a specific question for Carol, I have had some people ask, what patches were you wearing when you first started on the patches? If you want to address that, I addressed it in writing, but if you'd like to address that now so that people know.
Let's see, it was X39, X49, Eon, Carnosine.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was it, wasn't
it? Yeah, it was just the 4 to start off with, and you put X39 and 49 right over your hearts to begin with.
Right.
And then carnosine and Eon on your right eye, actually.
Where the shingles was. Yeah.
And then the second, it wasn't in the second month, in the third month, then we added glutathione. And then you started wearing glutathione on your neck bump, and then the stayed there. And then the rest is history.
I know. I like to say, if anything, I would add more of what we had of the 5, but I had what I had, and that was working extremely well. Everything worked. Everything worked really well. The fibrillation went away, all of that, and the doctor didn't have to put in a defibrillator, and I was starting to get back on track again. I was eating, I gained weight, naturally gained weight,
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
because I was overeating.
Yeah.
And I'd never gained weight in my life except
Yeah.
to have a baby. But
Yeah.
other than that, no.
And you had never had a significant weight loss, just like weight
No.
gain and weight loss, because I had the same problem. All of a sudden I dropped 10,
Yeah.
10, 12 pounds that I couldn't afford to, when you're 103 and now you drop 10 pounds, now here I am at child weight, 92, and I looked horrible,
Exactly.
too thin.
Oh, I went from 110 down to 84
Yeah,
when my husband passed. Yeah.
it's miserable. It feels
Yeah.
awful. Your clothes dance on you.
Yeah.
And no matter how hard you try to eat more calories, to eat
Yeah.
more food,
Didn't make any difference.
you don't gain weight, because I took in a lot more calories. But we got to remember, when something is broken inside your body, I had brain damage. So when you have brain damage,
Yeah.
there's a lot of signals that are not making it through because of the damage of the brain. So that's why
Right.
chemistry got all out of whack. My metabolism is obviously out of whack, and
Yeah.
I'm taking a lot more calories. My body is not able to methylate it. It's not able to process it. It's not able to benefit from everything that I'm doing. And I didn't even gain 1 pound after 30 days of all this extra work, all this extra focus every morning, every, the middle of the day, a snack, a dinner, another snack. And I'm not a snacker. I do not, some people need to snack all the time. I am not one to snack. I was eating a lot of really nutritious, high calorie, high protein snacks, and I did not gain. I almost wanted to cry, because I'm like, oh, not even 1 pound. And that was a lot of work.
I know.
So much work, and not gain even 1 pound. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the same problem that women have that gain weight for no apparent reason. And all this working out, all this work, and you don't even lose a pound. It's very depressing. It's very, very depressing. And your body doesn't feel good. I'm sure to be really overweight can't feel good, just like to being underweight does not feel good. But help is on the horizon. For any of you who are watching this is a recording, but of course we're going to be putting this on the YouTube channel. For anybody who has any kind of if you have any kind of heart arrhythmia, and again, this is for educational purposes only, but if you have a heart arrhythmia, if you feel that you have like a fish that's flipping in your chest, because some people will describe either PVCs or they will describe the defibrillation feeling in their chest, kind of like it's vibration, and you can just tell it's not a normal, because normally you don't even think or feel your heart. But when it's beating on the offbeat, or it's not beating efficiently, or it's when
you can tell, you can feel it.
It's like those are either PVCs or the fibrillation of the heart. You can do, first of all, you immediately want to regulate your breath, and then take 2 fingers on your carotid artery. It doesn't matter if it's the left or the right. That bulb, that's where your carotid artery is, like right under those tonsils. That's called the carotid bulb. You can massage that for 30 seconds in a circular motion for 30 seconds. And the breath is the remote control to the brain. So that will regulate your heartbeat. It'll regulate your pulse. It'll also alkalize your body. So just for 30 seconds, go ahead and give it that massage. And then do 25, as slow as you can, long, deep breaths, and do it rhythmically. So you can count 4, like inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4, inhale 4, inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4. That's called box breathing. And then your heart will start to beat. It'll entrain to that rhythmic box breathing of inhaling. If you inhale quickly, then your heart rate will race. If you inhale slowly, your heart will beat slower. So if you have an elevated heart rate, you can breathe in slower. You can do it to a count of 8 instead of 4. So these are just things to know. You have more control over your physiology than you know. And those are things and tips for free that you can do right now that will start to help feel better.
They really help.
It does. It does. And that's why meditation is so powerful, because when you meditate, you're doing rhythmic breathing and you're centering and calming your entire being. And then if you're not taking statins, if you're not taking any heart meds to lower blood pressure, then you can also have grapefruit if you have an elevated pulse where your blood pressure and your pulse is, let's say it's 120 plus. Grapefruit, having that once or twice a day will help lower it naturally along with those things. All right, that's it. It's a wrap. Ciao for now.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Love you all. Mwah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will see you tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
PM. All right, ciao for now.
Bye for now.
Bye.